justice they deserve for losing their mind becoming Trumpers.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you for joining me here for Conversations with Taz, with Get Into It, Taz and Chris, our favorite resident ginger. And before we jump into tonight's hot topics, I do have to bring you all some updates. And keep in mind, for these updates, more information is linked in the description below. Starting with the Hawaii wildfire, the president and first lady will be visiting Maui on Monday. The death toll has crossed 100 people. Search dogs and rescuers are looking for the missing as we speak. Some victims have been identified. The cause of the fire is currently still under investigation. Now, with that being said, I know a lot of people have heard about the lawsuits against the power company currently, and this is due to residents feeling like there was no preemptive measures taken due to the high winds being predicted and everything else, and they knew that one little flame would cause what happened. There were no warning sirens or signs. People just had to try to warn one another, and the fire was burning at 1 mile per minute. So keep that in mind. Outside investors are now trying to prey on survivors displaced from their homes, basically trying to buy up the property. But the mayor is seeking a property moratorium, so hopefully that will go through and stop all these vultures. Update from Fulton County, Georgia. There's 9 days remaining for those indicted to turn themselves in. There's a total of 41 counts, and there are also 30 unindicted co-conspirators listed within the indictment. I told y'all it's almost 100 pages. It's taken me a while to get through the nitty-gritty. Mark Meadows and his legal team want the case moved to federal court, and this is because with it being in Fulton County, the jury obviously will come from Fulton County, and he wants the jury to come from northern Georgia counties, hence why he wants it to be moved to federal court. The Fulton County jail, where they will have to turn themselves into, is available to them 24 hours a day. They don't have to come through business hours, and there's no secret or discreet entrance or exit. Mugshots and fingerprints will occur. The judge that will be handling this case is Judge Scott McAfee. He is a Superior Court judge that was just appointed this February 2023. He is a former Inspector General, a former senior ADA with Fulton County, and a former ADA with Barrow County. As some of you all may remember, you may not, but the private second class that decided to escape to North Korea, his name is Travis King. We finally got confirmation from North Carolina today that he is in custody. North Korea is claiming that King wants to defect from the United States due to racial tensions and his disillusionment regarding the United States Army. His mother wants to speak with him via phone just to make sure everything is copacetic. The rest of his family just wants him to come back and start over. There's no update on his condition or if he's going to be charged with anything. He is officially via the United Nations, listed as AWOL and not a POW because there was no wartime going on and he fled across. Now, there are experts that are saying that he is plausibly being used as an anti-America pawn, but we have no way to determine that because, well, he is a black man. He is in the military. He is from the United States. Whew. So those are all your updates for tonight. Like I said, there's more detailed information linked below in the description of the video.
And the other thing with the federal courts are, no cameras.
Yeah.
By having something moved to a federal from local would be no cameras, which I'm sure some of them don't want to be on cameras for everyone to see how they act.
So. And I forgot to link it in the description, but on my TikTok page is an in-depth video because the names and addresses of the special grand jury participants have been leaked on behalf of Trump. And it is encouraged that they are being doxxed, but there is protections being granted to them. That information, it is marked on my TikTok page. Now, on to the story of the week. And I told y'all at the beginning of the week that I was holding it so we could discuss it with our favorite.
I thought the story is I'm back.
Yeah, yes.
I've been missing in action. I've been MIA.
You've been MIA.
Resident, yeah.
So pretty much everybody should be familiar with this story. It was a book and a movie called The Blind Side. Now it is a court case over conservatorship. Some of you all are familiar with conservatorships because of what Britney Spears was under for far, far, far too long. So get comfy. There's a few videos, even a legal breakdown, and we're going to talk about it on the other end. Y'all know how we do. We'll see you in 2 and 2.
Am I the only person that saw this in 2009 when this movie came out and thought this story is way too good and also way too stereotypical to be true? The addict mom who couldn't take care of her kid, these people who just come out of nowhere and just they see so much promise in this young man, they just have to take him under their wing. Now come to find out, it's all bullshit. Come to find out, Michael Oher was never adopted. The whole time they had him in a conservatorship. And if that word rings a bell for you, it's the same thing that happened to Britney Spears. Basically, a group of people can control all your financials and all your financial movements. And then come to find out, he didn't make a single penny off of that movie, The Blind Side. It says it right here at the top. The Tuohys negotiated a deal with 20th Century Fox that left Oher without any payment for the rights to his name, likeness, and life story. These people allegedly made him sign away his whole life story for nothing. But allegedly, they signed a separate contract where they would get $225,000 and 2.5% of the film's net proceeds. And the movie ended up making over $300 million. And the crazy thing about it is these people included their biological children in their contracts. So their children are making money off of this man's name. Allegedly. And he's still under the conservatorship. So I wonder if that carries over into his NFL career, because these people probably got access to all his football money. In the petition that he made to the court, he said this: where other parents of Michael's classmates saw Michael simply as a nice kid in need of conservators, Sean Tuohy and Leah Ann Tuohy saw something else, a gullible young man whose athletic talent could be exploited for their own benefit. They're also alleging that they only offered him a place to stay and the adoption prospect in summer of 2004 when he became a legal adult. There are also allegations that they lied to him to get him to sign certain papers saying that it was part of an adoption process. But really it was paperwork that would strip away his legal rights and put him in a conservatorship. Yo, these people were a different kind of sinister.
So this entire movie is based on a lie? The Blind Side about these well-meaning white family that took in this black kid, not because of his ability, not because he was seen as a future NFL prospect, but because they had love and humanity. Yeah, reports then came out, Michael Oher, former NFL player and subject of the Blind Side movie, alleges his entire adoption was a lie. This comes directly from the ESPN page right here. Retired NFL player Michael Oher, whose supposed adoption out of grinding poverty by a wealthy white family was immortalized in a 2009 movie, The Blind Side, petitioned a Tennessee court Monday with allegations with a central element of the story was a lie concocted by the family to enrich themselves at his expense. The 14-page petition filed the Shelby County Probate Court alleges that the Sean and Leah Ann Tuohy, whatever their name is, who took more into their home and high school student, never adopted him. They bamboozled him. Man, Oher is writing the courts to ask them to end the Tuohy's conservatorship and issue an injunction barring for them using his name and his likeness. These folks been able to make business decisions on his behalf and his name because they tricked him into thinking they were adopting him when in actuality they Britney Spears this man. Now, I remember when Britney Spears was under, when she couldn't make no decisions for herself and her daddy played her, that's what they did to Michael Oher. The reports also say that he's seeking the full accounting of the money that the Tuohys earned using his name and to have the couple pay him his fair share of profits as well as unspecified compensatory and punitive damages. And of course, the family did not immediately return any phone calls to ESPN on Monday. And this is wild, right? They never adopted him, instead tricking him into signing a document making them his conservators and enriching themselves. What in the 12 years a slave is going on here now? So this entire movie is based on a lie? The Blind Side about these
Go back and watch Consciously's video for the full context of what is going to be discussed right here. Basically, Michael Oher is suing because the family in The Blind Side, the entire idea behind The Blind Side is a lie, and he was actually tricked into being put into a conservatorship and them having ownership over his entire career, money, and business management for the rest of his life. Those things are extremely difficult to get out of. But this is what I want to say. This is what disabled people have been warning about. That if you all are about free Britney and free Britney this and free Britney that, you all have to reorient your thinking to be for radical autonomy for disabled people. Because the system of ableism can be weaponized against literally anyone. Anyone. This is what we've been warning about. There's a reason why this was so easy to do to him. There is a reason why they want trans people to get screened for autism before they receive gender-affirming care. There's a reason why Black and brown children who graduate high school are tricked into fake diplomas. Ableism is one of the greatest toolkits that could be weaponized against anyone. And if your advocacy regarding anything else skips disability, all you're creating is a loophole later on. Conservatorships and guardianships should not even be a thing. There are other less restrictive tools to help disabled people make decisions. And you can find them by contacting your state's protection advocacy agency or your area's Center for Independent Living. This is why I've said what I've said. When I said that when you talk about Britney, the issue is not that she's not disabled. The issue is that nobody with a disability should be treated like that regardless.
This story is going to piss you off. I'm preparing you right now. So we remember the movie The Blind Side, right? That was the movie where the white family adopts the black football player who then goes on to make it in the NFL. Well, Michael Oher, the subject of that movie, the football player himself, has filed paperwork in a Tennessee court today that alleges that this family has completely lied all these years. So what was the lie, you might ask? It was that he was adopted. Yeah, they never adopted him. They basically tricked him and had him sign a conservatorship that basically they then used to make millions of dollars off of his name. And you are never going to believe this shit. They used that conservatorship to negotiate a deal with the movie studio that paid them and their 2 birth children the royalties from that movie. That movie made over $300 million. They got paid, their kids got paid. Do you know who didn't get paid? Michael Oher. He made $0 from that. So they used his name in the conservatorship and paid him $0. And it wasn't just the movie. Leanne has been writing books, speaking as a motivational speaker, all predicated on the lie that she adopted him and that he was part of their family. And he believed it. He actually believed it until February of this year, which he embarrassingly found out that a conservatorship is, nope, it's not. He has absolutely no familial ties to them. And he literally just found out. So they took an 18-year-old kid, they had him sign paperwork that he didn't understand, gave him full legal rights, and then they continued to grift off of him and make millions of dollars, and he got shit, and he thought he was part of the family. These people are absolute trash. Needless to say, they could not be reached immediately for comment, but this is complete trash. And we need to blow it up because truthfully, this conservatorship bullshit where they took advantage of this young black man needs to be blasted just as much as the Britney Spears conservatorship controversy, because we need to bring attention to this.
So this week, Michael Oher, who's the football player from The Blind Side, he sued the Tuohys, the people who are depicted in the movie, to have raised him and got him off to college. You know the movie. And I had a chance today to read the petition that he filed in the court in Tennessee. And I've been thinking about this situation, this movie, a lot, and having read the petition, right now, I am in the mindset of I absolutely believe that what Michael Oher is saying is true. And it's really bad, usually, to read a petition or to hear one side of a story and decide who's right, who's telling the truth, who should win. But let me tell you why I absolutely believe him. And it's this. In the movie, he's depicted as being illiterate, right? I mean, he can barely read. He really needs a lot of help just to be a student that can get a scholarship, right? But if you've ever seen an interview with him, he seems to be a bright dude. He doesn't seem nearly slow or illiterate as he's depicted in the movie. And it occurred to me, If anybody at any time was going to make a movie where my children are depicted in that, it's my story, their story, whatever, my children are being depicted, and I have any opportunity to have input or control over how they're depicted, would I ever allow my child to be depicted as less than they are, to be depicted as less intelligent than they are? Hell no. Am I going to go to my daughter and be like, hey, they're making a movie about us and you're going to be in the movie and somebody's going to play you in that movie? Oh, by the way, sorry, sweetheart, in the movie, you're illiterate. Sorry, kid, in the movie, you torture small animals for fun. Sorry, kid, in the movie, even though it's not true, you're depicted as beating up children at school for no reason. But the Tuohys did that. They allowed this child, he was still a young person when this story came to light. He was barely out of college. And they referred to him as their child, although they never adopted him. That's part of the suit. Who would do that? Who would allow this person that you supposedly love to be depicted as less than, as just unintelligent and barely getting by in school? And that's why I believe him. And they're going to have to work really hard for me to not believe him. And I'll do a video later in the week going through specifically parts of the petition. But that's my initial thought and just thought I'd share.
And before we get into the conversation, the Tuohys did kind of sort of release a statement earlier today in which they backtrack on their adoption story and said that it was too late to adopt him because he was 18 at the time. That is a lie. And they said that if he wanted out of the conservatorship, they would have allowed him out at any time, which begs the question, why is he having to go to court? Because they also tripled down and said that he has come to them before asking. They said it was a shakedown for money, but in the legal documents, he's come to them asking them why he didn't profit from the movie and where's his cut of the money. And he calculated how much he's owed and was like, give me that.
Yeah. And they also had stated something where during that time they had gone to court and they took his mom to court or something like that, and it still didn't add up because you're looking at a situation where all this they were saying were to get him into Ole Miss, and because they were like, basically saying, if it wasn't for us, he wouldn't be in college. But then from there, he had such success at Ole Miss that he went pro and had success in the pros, especially with Baltimore. And yet only recently did he just uncover everything,
and he's on he recently wrote a book and it's published. He's on a book tour right now. Yeah. And here's the thing that I think a lot of people don't know about Michael. He was already an All-American. He already had a scholarship when they came into his life. And if they're going to use the excuse, we couldn't adopt him because he was 18, so we put him in a conservatorship, he didn't need your help to get into college, because when you apply for college, you apply. Your parents don't apply for you.
Right.
When you fill out the FAFSA sheets, you are doing it.
Right. And in the movie, it was all about him going to their alma mater. And he had supposedly many offers from other places and all that, but there just spells a whole lot that was done behind his back, behind closed doors, around the table, that he just was never included in. They saw his potential, clearly. I don't know how much of the whole, he didn't do well in school and we had to really work hard with him. Yeah, I mean,
given that you have to keep a certain GPA in order to be on a team, And yes, I know in certain towns, certain cities, certain jurisdictions, they'll push the kids along for so long. But given that, as a former coach, former athlete, siblings are athletes and have coached on that level. I have a nephew on that level that goes to training camps all summer long. And my dad was a coach, even up to the AAU level. And I used to accompany a friend of mine on recruitment trips for colleges. They talk to you because when you get to the collegiate level, you're now doing interviews. You can't have Billy Bob no IQ in front of the camera.
Right.
And the boosters on the collegiate level, it is a lot of shaking and baking. It's a lot of networking. So it has not been confirmed as of yet, but y'all know when this case, if it gets to court, y'all know I'm going to watch every second of it. The Tuohy's got a kickback for getting him to go to Ole Miss. The boosters definitively gave them some type of kickback. And Mr. Tuohy, his defense is, well, we were already wealthy. Why would we do this for a couple $1,000s? It wasn't a couple $1,000s. You got 2.5% of $300 billion. Let me put this into perspective for you all. You remember the original Lion King movie? Remember the young man who did all the singing and voiced the teen Lion King? His mother had the forethought. No, don't give us a check up front. Give us a cut of all the proceeds in the future. He has been set for life. He literally picks and chooses roles if he wants to do it. And we have not seen him in the betterment of 10 years. And he's a millionaire. That's why Johnny Depp, Brad Pitt, Denzel Washington, now right into their contracts that they get a portion of the profits because you're going to make more money than just a check.
That's right.
Kickback all the way around. And I saw in the comment section, unfortunately for Michael O'Hare, here's the thing. Now in NCAA, the athletes can make money. Now, the female athletes right now are killing it. That's why a lot of them, especially in basketball, they're like, why aren't you leaving college early to play in the WNBA? They're making more money in college than they are then. Because it would be even worse if the Blind Side came out now and he was just now leaving college.
Right.
So they're now getting paid for what they're doing. And yes, they recruit top athletes hard. They will promise you the world.
Yeah.
But previously, they would take advantage of you. And to say that this young man couldn't have got, like, they're basically saying they pulled the ultimate legacy / affirmative action to get him into college, and he would have just been destitute without him. And I remember when the movie came out, because I watched it, and there were a lot of things that lined up for this movie that did not sit well with me. It wasn't the type of movie Sandra Bullock would normally do, but Sandra Bullock needed to recover her public persona because this was during the whole Jesse James divorce thing. Right. And it came out that he was messing with a chick that
she needed to have a feel-good story.
So she needed that. But when I watched the movie, it was like watching the white supremacy handbook play out. Every racial trope, like they took it all and stuffed it into one movie. Drug addicted mother, uneducated, never had any, like they acted like this man didn't know what a damn bed was.
Yeah, we're pulling you from the projects.
Like I remember that scene has been burnt into my head for years. The fact that they literally sat there and made it seem like he didn't know what a bed was.
Yeah. It definitely painted a clear position on what they wanted to accomplish. And their objective was to try and make this feel good. Look what we're doing for this kid who's got nothing. We're taking them out of the mom's driving to the project. She's going up. She's gonna talk with the mom. And I mean, it was so, I mean, nowadays you would see this all over, Netflix, and you'd see some movie that's painting.
What gets me is that the scene and the story that was told about how they became face to face. He was walking home, it was raining, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I've had late games where I've had to get home. I've dropped kids off to their houses as a coach. I think we've all had, little jobs in high school and stuff. Or, you didn't always have a car. And if you're lucky enough to get a job within walking distance, you might have walked through the rain.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you looked at him like your children ain't never touched rain. Your children ain't never walked anywhere and decided, he thought that's the look. And not, where can I take you? Not where is your parent? Not any type of reunification. It went right into saviorism.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, we got the money, and you're going to be our project. Like I said, it painted the story they wanted to paint, and out of that came, for a lot of people, nothing to counter that. Like, a lot of people didn't have anything to counter the movie. Like, wait a minute, and then there was a lot of people that just didn't look into what's true and what's not. Now, for me, a lot of times when I see a movie, especially one based on or inspired by true events, I'm Googling. Like, when I get out of that movie, I want to find out how much is real. Sometimes I found out like it's 2% real or something. I want to know what parts are actually like based. Like, where is the hard evidence that this occurred? And a lot of times you will find very little, because it's always the interpretation of a screenplay or something to the effect of, we want it to go in this direction. So we really had nothing to base Michael Oher's life on, because all we saw in real life was a player that, for me, oh yeah, I know him. He plays for the Ravens. He's really good. Nothing about his background. I had nothing to counter the movie.
And that's why I say they got the right one at the right time, because even though at that time the internet was a little bit more advanced, it wasn't to the point where you were getting a lot of high school stats online. You still had to watch your local news. They weren't from the biggest town out there. Right. And that's why I say that's why the whole bed situation pissed me off, because when you have schools like that, you have road trips to these games.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
And so it was hard the only thing whoever ran their PR did an immaculate job, because the only thing you saw were the morning show interviews, buzz about the movie. Oh, it's Oscar buzz. And then the movie went from being about Michael to being about Sandra and the Oscar to being about the Tuohys. Mm-hmm. And then you stopped hearing about Michael, and you started hearing about the Tuohys writing their own books, having speaking engagements and all this stuff. And I'm like, hold up, I thought you had restaurants to run.
Well, they did a whole tour. They outdid some music artists on their tours. They were pulling in money, like not pocket change. They were bringing in money. And it's all feeding off the movie, the story. Michael's sitting over there like, yeah, it's regardless what he made from the NFL. I mean, this man was successful in college, had a very good pro career. For his position, it was probably as long as it could be, because, it is what it is for his position. And he already retired. So you get to this point, the guy's been out of the league for several years, and he's blindsided, because why would you be blindsided now if people are saying, oh, well, this was what it was. This is how. Apparently, it was never explained from day one, because you're not going to get blindsided when this guy is a retired NFL athlete, and now he's having to go through a court process for something that he clearly was out in the cold.
Mm-hmm. And people are hearing this story and your only reaction is, well, this used to be such a feel-good story. Stop focusing on the feel-good fluffy movie and focus on the fact that this man's life has been flipped upside down. A conservatorship means, and I'm pretty sure this is how he found out about it, because like I said, he just completed a book.
Yeah.
And probably as money was being dispersed, he was probably like, wait a minute, I talked to this publisher, I'm supposed to get X, Y, and Z. That means every dime he's ever made has to go through the TUIs before it gets to his hand.
Yeah, right, exactly. So where does that put this guy? It doesn't put him in the category of greed, like, give me what I made. No, he deserved, he earned this.
He did the work.
They made no attempts to wait till he got to a certain age and said, you know what, you're a successful athlete, you're in the NFL. This was never discussed from day one, let alone day 2, 3, 4, through his career, through retirement. I mean, if this was about greed, this is something that probably would have been a battle a long time ago. But for it to occur at this point in his life, people can't point the finger at Michael, because rightfully so, he's deserving of the riches. Like, why are they reaping the rewards when he's just a retired athlete right now? They could still go on speaking engagements for as long as people remember the movie.
Yeah, they could have paid him fairly. They could have not done a conservatorship. They could have sat down with him. They could have just told the truth,
right,
of how they became a family, and that would have been enough. Right. Because just like Deion Sanders has shared his story multiple ways. He didn't have the best beginnings, but people are still inspired by his beginnings. The Sharp brothers, I remember them doing an interview standing out in front of the original double-wide trailer that they grew up in front of. You can tell the truth. And they talked about different people in their communities that helped them. It's still inspiring. They had no intention on ever being inspirational. They had no intention on helping no one but themselves, because everyone with the TUI last name is profiting. And my thing is, in talking to a few friends when it first came out, people were telling me, they always tell me I'm paranoid or I'm overthinking stuff. And I'm like, no, because they adopted him. And I can understand wanting to hold on to your last name. I said, but when it comes to transracial adoption, I don't know a white person alive that lets somebody keep their last name. And I was doubtful of it since then, because his name has stayed Michael or her. It has never changed to Tui. And that would have been my first question. But at 18, not understanding contracts, somebody telling you, oh, this is paperwork that we need in order to sign it. They weren't actively looking for his mother. They weren't doing all these things. They waited. And like they said, well, we didn't officially ask him to move in with us until he was 18, which means they didn't have to go through a mother, a father, a grandmother, an older sibling, nothing.
Right. So, like I said, if you're looking at it from the non-film version, you're looking at it as a couple who clearly, not that they downplay their own kids, but they clearly saw an opportunity. There was an opportunity, regardless how big it may have been or where it was going to go in the future. They saw opportunity, and they weren't going to take just anybody in. I can't see that they would have just grabbed any kid off the street. This is opportunity. I mean, why, if he had so many offers from such big schools, then he went to your school? Like, what kind? There was definitely that influence of go where we are. Obviously, knowing that he went where they went, that's where, like you were saying, the profit came.
Yeah. And if they were so great and were able to turn people around and give them talent and give them intellect, why aren't their kids great?
Yeah. Where are they? What do they do? I mean, are they set with the money? I mean, are they just like, hey, I can just do this 9-to-5 job? I got royalties.
Yeah, because like I joke with my dad about my siblings, okay?
Mhm.
And I joke that they're not that bright. Objectively speaking, compared to me, no, they're not. But they're still they're all right. They're all right. They're all right. They're cool. They're cool. They're all right. They can tie their shoes, okay? But if you line all of us up, there's not one that's like, oh, superstars and then the dud. No. Like if you're so great, why wasn't your son a football star? Why isn't your daughter a scientist? Why is it the only books you all have written have not been about yourselves, but fan fiction on how to save black men?
Right. They're trying to land a deal with Hallmark Channel. I mean, I don't know. I know we'll get more information as this unfolds, but
oh yeah, y'all know I'm gonna be watching this.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't the Depp Heard series, but it's still, all eyes, because there's just no way that this guy who had, a decent to successful pro career, retired, would now come around and, hey, what's going on?
And he has no reputation for womanizing, no drug addiction, no alcoholism. So you can't say, oh, well, he spent up all his money, so he's trying to get no.
We see him with 10 cars.
Laced. He has always been straight laced.
Right. Yeah, there's no. He's not the flashy guy, He's a guy that you would never probably know was in the NFL and had a successful career, other than, hey, you look like you played football and you're tall and you're big, and but yeah, we're gonna get more on this.
Yep. Now, from one crazy story in the world of sports to the next. Now we know Washington Commanders, finally got rid of their egregious, atrocious ownership. The only person I can think of that can run a company into the ground just as quick or quicker than Elon Musk. But now that they're free from the shackles of the misogynistic, sexist pig, there's some fans that want to change the name. Now, we all agree Washington Commanders is not the best name. Yes. We don't need to go back to the OG name. But here's a video that has a suggestion on what could be plausibly a name that makes everybody happy and gives Washington back their oomph. Y'all know how we do. We'll see you in 2 and 2.
Y'all already know, when I talk about sports on my page, it's something that we gotta discuss. I was on Twitter because I refused to call it X, and I saw this tweet about a petition that was posted to have the name of the Washington Commanders changed back to their original name. The petition had a goal of 75,000 signatures. At the time I screenshotted it, it had 57,837. Hey there guys, future me here. The petition is now at 82,000, which compared to their following on Twitter, which is like 1.4 million, that's like 5.8%, so it's not a whole lot, but nonetheless, back to past me, woohoo! But according to Commanders head coach Ron Rivera, who is, off the top of my head, he's one of 6 active head coaches of color in the NFL, he said that he acknowledges a lot of people have been using the term recently, but they use it with the utmost respect. Setting that aside for a second though, I am well aware that a lot of people who are fans of the DC franchise were very upset when they first changed their name to the Washington football team. Not a great name, I'm well aware of that. Some people it grew on, but it wasn't a good name. Then they changed their name again, became the Commanders. Still not great. I honestly thought they should have changed their name to the Washington Red Wolves because the Red Wolf is actually native to the DC area. Their name already had red in it. Why not just make your name the Red Wolves? I thought it would have been a seamless fit. You could have a cool mascot, cool logo, it's native to the DC area, your name already had red in it. For whatever reason though, they didn't do it. It is what it is. Having said all that though, if you are somebody who is an advocate of them changing their name back to a literal racist slur, how dense are you? I'm gonna say this, and it's gonna sound controversial to some people, and some people are probably gonna comment and try to fight me about this. I'm probably not gonna engage with them, but whatever. there is an argument to be made that the R word for Native Americans should be considered worse than the N word for black people. Unlike black people in America, Native Americans were almost wiped out. Not only were they enslaved, not only were they horribly mistreated, there was a genocide. And then some time passes, Native Americans are given some land here and there, and they're given casinos and told to kind of go away and shut up. And then there's a football team made, not named Native Americans or anything like that, named after the racial slur that was used against them. Understand, I'm not trying to argue that one word is for sure worse than the other, right? But what I do know is that nobody in their right mind would say it's okay to name a team after a black slur. Why is it okay to name a team after a Native American slur? If your argument for why it should be okay to use that word is because you yourself don't attribute it to Native Americans, you attribute it to a football team, or alternatively, that there are Native Americans out there who were fine with that name being used, that's not a good argument. Obviously, if you are not Native American, your opinion of the word means jack. As it pertains to the tribes, it has been well documented that the tribes have differing views amongst each other, not all of them agree, but it has been known there are Native Americans out there who are very offended by this word, who are very offended by their culture being used as a mascot. It's why the Cleveland Indians changed their name. It's why schools have had to change their very stereotypical, very offensive Native American mascots. It's why the tomahawk chop that Chiefs fans do, I think needs to stop. It sounds and looks cool, but how many things realistically are more offensive than that? On a final note though, with all due respect, this petition sucks, and it's unfortunate by the time I post this video, it's probably going to be at like 60,000 signatures, but this name should never come back. This term is a dated, offensive racial slur. I'm disappointed that Ron Rivera didn't just immediately shut this shit down. No, that word should never come back. It should have never been made their name in the first place.
And what makes going back to that name just a little bit more egregious, let me give y'all a little bit of history, because of course, that's what I do. When they were originally choosing the name, there was a person that was a pretending to be Native, who was like, oh yeah, we're fine with it. Look, I got all these signatures from my kinfolk. It's good. It's fine. It is not. The Native community has fought for years to have names such as this removed. So to go back to it is a no-no. I do like the red wolves, though. Y'all wouldn't have to change your colors. And wolves, hey, Twilight.
I did that. I don't know if indeed there was some issues with getting the name because of something else. I know a lot of people that I heard from even back home were saying they liked red wolves because, number one, the color scheme has to stay the same. It's got to be burgundy and gold. Most teams in most cities, one thing you would hate to change is your team colors. Names can come and go, but they also should be something like, let's take Baltimore once again, for example. When the Browns made their move to Baltimore and they involved the community in a name search. And Ravens was popular. They went with what was popular. In our case, thanks to the former, we kept seeing lists pop up in local newspapers and things like that. And obviously I get this from back home because I'm not in back home right now. But there were lists of names. Red Wolves was in there and several others. And it was always about, well, if certain names aren't taken or if we're going to have trouble, getting the rights to certain names and we can't do that. And we may have to pull some names off the list. And all people wanted was names that we could have where there wasn't going to be an issue, because we know in some sports, you can have more than one sport that has a name. Look at San Francisco Giants baseball, New York Giants football. You could have, the Warriors in basketball, and you could have the Warriors. There's sports that have the same name on different leagues.
Yep.
It's just a matter of having the rights and doing what you need to do to make it all work out. But yeah, when it came down to the unveiling of the name, the first thing everyone thought was Commanders was never on the list. Commanders was never really breathed as an option. All they kept saying was, well, we really want something that brings together or talks about the DMV area, which for people that don't know the DMV, when you refer to the DC area, that's DC, Maryland, Virginia, that's DC DMV. They wanted something to represent that whole area. I don't know what you could, unless you call them Washington traffic. So there's not much you could do to really signify the area. So I don't know where Commanders came from. I mean, yeah, we all know the Pentagon's in DC. We all know that there are some bases around the area, but
yeah, but it's giving
nobody
movie toy soldiers.
Right.
That's what it made me think of when I heard that, because I was like, I don't recall it being on any list, but okay.
It wasn't.
And then when I heard Washington Commanders, I was like, is this like toy soldiers?
But this is like one last thing, and we see now, this was one last thing that Dan did that nobody else got a say in. You know, look at our home uniforms with this new name. They're white, burgundy, and black. And that's our home uniform. No gold, no burgundy. It's an odd burgundy. It just goes to show you that instead of involving people, this was one man's mission for over 2 decades. People don't realize outside of Washington how much of a loyal fan base we really do have, but how many of them refuse to go to games. Increasing the sales, not putting a good product out there. That's why the stadium was having more away fans than home fans.
Mm-hmm.
That, growing up in the DC area, it was known that season tickets were sold out decades ahead. You had to wait a 10-year waiting list for season tickets. I mean, that place was loaded with not away fans, home fans. So that's where it's gone over time, over 2 decades of one man's mission to make a lot of money and just bypass all the football minds that could be out there that could help put a better product out there on the field. Just took a dump on the fans, took a dump at everything. So, and if anybody remembers when they did like a little memorial inside of the stadium for Sean Taylor. This was another fiasco where it was like it looked like a rod iron stick figure with a jersey and a helmet on it. And we were like, and this is a tribute to the great Sean Taylor, who passed away too early. I mean, nothing surprised people, but there was always disappointment. Like, when will this guy just leave? And the Commander's name, the uniforms, everything was one last Dan pulling his pants down and mooning the fans that this is what I'm going to do because this is what I want. This was not a popular vote. The players didn't like it. The coaches, obviously, hey, he's trying to keep his job. He's not really going to say much. It just wasn't popular. So the fact that there's a petition to go back to the original name, personally, I think is ridiculous. Obviously, yes, for a lot of years, that's what people called the team because that was their name. But we've seen in a lot of sports. I mean, for a long time, St. John's changed their name to Red Storm. The Cleveland Indians changed their name to the Guardians. Mm-hmm. You know, there were teams that changed, and it may not have changed to a name people really wanted. But if you're a fan of your team, okay, you're still going to support them, right? I would think. So for me, yeah, there may be a name I don't like currently on my shirt, but that's my team. Like, I would like a better name, but I'm not saying, oh, we got to go. Yeah, the name's horrible. Hey, maybe we can go back to the first name. That's not on the table. That's people are hung up on doing what they want. Like, we're in this world now where this is what I want and what you want, I don't like. So the stance about we need signatures for what? What do you think the league is going to do for you? Because the league is trying to clean up their act. Now they still got a whole lot of cleaning, but they're trying to do certain things at least. I mean, obviously we can't do certain things about some owners, but
we can hope.
I mean, for me, there's so much excitement in Washington because we have owners that want the community involved. You saw a turnout for our training, our practices in preseason training camp. It was down the road and down across and around the corner. People were showing up in thousands, in troves, like they just got awarded a brand new team. That's what it means to have new ownership. You have somebody like Harris who's already an owner and has already had some success. And then you got Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson is not going to invest his name or money in a project just to be there.
Nope.
He wants to win. He's a winner. He's done that on all his levels. I mean, and it hasn't all been sports. So we as a community embrace new ownership. It's like a breath of fresh air. Like, you want us, you want to get our opinion? Okay, let's make a list. And everybody, of course, number one almost on their list was the name. The name will bring a change of uniform. I mean, yeah, that's just one thing to. I mean, obviously, it's going to take a minute, but we needed that direction. There's nothing worse than, it's one thing for a team to have a franchise where the owner's just cheap, which somebody may know about. Where
they're beyond just cheap. Okay, let's not forget. First of all, the Browns. First of all, the Cleveland Browns have relocated too many times. The first time was when they came down 75 and went to Cincinnati and became the Bengals, because Cleveland was not letting go of the name Browns.
Yeah.
The second time, now they could have did the city a little bit better. They just picked up in the middle of the night and left like LeBron James.
Yeah.
But the Brown family, they are the epitome of old money. Okay, they will penny pinch like they are pharaohs in Egypt. Like, they can really just load up the casket and take it with them. Like, you can't pay us.
Would they be willing to watch the team go back to the basement? Because that's what will happen if you don't pay these upcoming Joe and Chase money.
My thing is, as racist and egregious as Marge Schott was with the Reds, at least she wasn't stingy with the pocketbooks. I'm glad they finally took that egregious, ugly ass statue of her damn dog down from in front of that car dealership she used to. Oh, that was scary. But did it look like Large Marge or something? It was a replica of her dog Shotzi. But the Brown they are Mike Brown is the Scrooge McDuck of human beings.
So let me ask you this then. Is the tone in that area then that people are worried they're just not going to pay everyone what they need to keep this team intact? I mean, obviously not everybody. There's going to be a
between the fan base is actual, factual, and true. Mike Brown needs to just be an owner. He needs to take his hands out of everything else. He does not know how to draft. He does not know how to recruit. He keeps trying to draft positions we don't need filled. If we already have somebody that's knocking it out the box and we got a couple backups for that position, stop stacking the deck. For the first time in a very, very long time, we have a top tier quarterback. We need to get our defensive and offensive lines together, and we need to spend money so we can get decent offensive and offensive and defensive lines, because Mr. Joe Cool, Mr. himself, can't keep leaving crinkly crunchily after every game.
He will not have a long career if he keeps getting beat to pieces.
He's gonna look like a crinkle fry.
And then it'll be like Joe.
It'll look like an accordion. They don't get it together.
Yeah, then it'll be Joe Crispy.
And special teams? Yes, special teams. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you. Got one job. Kick the ball. One job.
But the thing is like you're gonna have, obviously, when you have a lot of contracts that come up within a short period of time, you have casualties. Like, okay, we can sign Chase, we don't have enough for T. We can do Joe, we don't have enough for, somebody else. It's like you still got to know, unless some people are willing to make some moves with their contract to kind of get more of a payout towards the end and shorten it on the front end.
Yeah, at this point, it's not even about the money. It's
about not losing. You can't lose your core. You can't lose your core, bottom line.
No, but it's about knowing how to properly draft and stop being so willy-nilly and trading people. Because we should have never traded Hoosh. We should have never traded Hoosh. TJ Houshmandzadeh should have been a franchise player.
I mean, to think of him in a Seattle jersey was just like, I guess, sacrilege for Cincy. I mean, that would be like, I don't know, watching Boomer wear a Browns jersey. I mean, it would be sacrilege.
First of all, I will burn the state of Ohio down. Boomer, Norman Julius Esiason, I'm talking to you. If I see you in anything even close to Brown relay, I'm burning the state. That no more nothing. Okay, it's done for everybody. Okay, everybody.
But yeah, I mean, getting back to the subject, I hope we do find a good name. I wish people would just stop with the got to go back to the old. I'm hopeful we have a good name. Like I said, regardless what it is, regardless what's settled on, I think we're in good hands with the new ownership group as far as how they will probably, when it gets to that point, conduct the name search. I think they really will try to correct the wrongs of old and involve the community, because they'll get a lot of input. Believe me, they'll get a lot of input, and I'm sure they're going to get some of that input of go back to old. But yeah, I do want a good name. And like you said, Red Wolves was actually one of the ones I liked, but then I kept hearing
Red Wolves.
But then I kept hearing something about it wasn't available, or they're going to have issues because somebody else had the rights. Or, I don't know what the issue was, but I like Red Wolves because you could easily keep the color scheme.
Mm-hmm.
Now, even if it wasn't something that had red in it, you could still keep the color scheme, but it has to make sense. The name has to make sense.
Or just drop the red and be the Washington Wolves.
I mean, whatever's available, whatever they can legally get, and something that doesn't sound ridiculous. Like the name on my shirt. I'll be happy to turn this in due time. Now, obviously, it's a big task to rebrand. I mean, we know the scale of rebranding on a pro league level. I mean, it's massive, but I do believe they'll get it done. I do believe they've heard from everybody. I'm sure, aside from them saying, "We are so glad you're here." Second thing, how about the name? I mean, it was probably second or third on the list when their people were meeting the new ownership.
Oh yeah, definitely. As always, great show, and you know how we do. Final thoughts on the night?
Good to be back. Week to week, the resident G and the host TAZ. We do what we do. We're always here to try to entertain as much as provide insight. There's a lot of stuff we know that's going on in the news, and some people are going to overdose on what's out there because until something new comes out, we're going to drill whatever is current, which everything is always going to be unfolding. So stay tuned. There's a lot of very important stuff going on in the legal world. We all know right now we're currently hosting the number 4 party. So yeah, there's a lot going on, and no, it does not involve Amber Heard or Deshaun Watson. or Anna Delvey or Elizabeth Holmes. Anna Delvey we'll hear from soon enough.
Yeah. Now I'll say, because Anna Delvey and Elizabeth Holmes started to overlap. Now that was a lot to cover. I remember I had to color code. I had to color code the paper. I had to order special different color paper to keep up with these 2 blonde white ladies that was basically pulling the same scam.
Yeah, but one wanted to desperately be Steve Jobs.
What did she?
I mean, talk about out of left field. I mean, Steve Jobs was not. He was more of a marketer and a visionary more than.
He's off to a good start.
It was the great Waz, as we know from.
Yeah,
Sheldon.
but see, the thing about it is she's on her way to being Steve Jobs. I'm not talking about intellectually, but she popped out a kid. She already doesn't have any emotion. She's sitting in prison, so she's not raising the kid. Yeah. So when she gets out, all she has to do is continue to be emotionally unavailable.
Yeah, she doesn't even blink.
No, she doesn't.
I haven't heard her lately, so I don't know if she ditched the lower voice.
Oh, she's in prison. Ain't nobody heard from her yet.
The lower, I gotta change my. I mean, that was like. People were like, huh?
She's not out yet. I've been waiting to see if maybe she gets early release, because I want to be there for that first press conference to see. I'm curious about the voice also, and I want to see if the wardrobe is still the same, if she's still just wearing all black.
Well, we know how Anna Delvey would handle wardrobe, because if there's a camera around, she's on point. She's like, hey, time out. I need something to wear.
And fix my makeup, darling.
Yes, you look trashy. What is that you're wearing? That does not look like a no big lots.
As always, thank you all for joining us here for the midweek break. Don't forget to join me tomorrow, where we will be talking about different perspectives of being a woman and or femme presenting in America today. Miss Arena will finally be on the show. Pam will be back, and I do have a lovely Jewish trans woman who will be joining us as well. So as always, each one teach one, each one reach one, and y'all pay close attention to this final video, because even though I didn't want to talk about it tonight, because I was trying to keep it kind of light.
Is it from Kentucky?
Situation. And Pupper stayed asleep, so that's a plus.
Yes.
Here's some additional information regarding immigration. See y'all tomorrow.
A fourth delusion that does not so much victimize we members of the public as it does law enforcement that fall for it is the idea that we can easily know someone's immigration status. The fact is, people themselves often do not know their immigration status, and that's exactly how complicated the law is concerning this. Sometimes it's because they don't know the facts. Just Google for yourself. You'll find examples of Border Patrol officers who themselves did not realize that not only were they not citizens, but they were also out of status with immigration. Every attorney who practices in this area, and even I who didn't really practice in that area, can give you examples of clients who did not know their own immigration status, and moreover, sometimes the attorney themselves could not determine their immigration status despite our best efforts. So the idea that your local police officer can figure it out is frankly ludicrous.